Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Cover Crimson. We're going to talk about Bama. It's spring break, but it's not spring break for us. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about, including that exceptional secondary and some of these backs that Alabama has. Jam Miller, is this going to be his year? All that and more, get in the comments section. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. Use the promo code Crimson and take advantage of a great deal. All right, let's get it going. All right, Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to the show. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. That's Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie, and we love to talk Alabama sports with you guys right here. So like and subscribe, thumbs up. You know, that's all the things we ask you to do every single day. It really helps the algorithm. And make sure that you comment because we want to hear from you guys as well. All right, Clint, good to see you, my friend. One of the best parts about this Alabama camp is we're figuring out how good the secondary potentially could be. And when you start looking at that secondary, Zabien Brown, who was a freshman last year, one of those five-star guys, came in immediately, made an impact. We kept hearing about it. Of course, had the big interception to beat Georgia or end the game. You got Arnold, McKinstry. So you're talking about some top names here. Where do you put Brown when you compare him against some of the greats that have played at Alabama?
Well, what kind of sparked this is I was doing my player rankings over at covercrimson.com, and I'll go ahead and tell people Zabien Brown checked in as a top 10 player for me.
Really? Wow.
And with him being, I was thinking about, okay, anytime I do something like this, I ask myself, okay, through the lens of like a fan, if you were to see that, would that be shocking to you? And if it was shocking, why would it be shocking?
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, was a freshman, there were some up and downs. He gave up some plays downfield. Some of it was capitalized on by the offense. Some of it wasn't, meaning the opposing offense. There was some stuff that was left on the field. So I started thinking, okay, this is how I need to not justify it, but explain it to people. Because following that 2021 season with Kool-Aid McKinstry, a lot of people were like, okay, 5-star talent, could end up being a good player down the road, but they really didn't believe in the leap. And you had some people who were on board with it, some people who were skeptical, and some people who just thought it's not going to happen for this guy because he kind of had some of the same struggles as Zabien Brown did in 2024. Lo and behold, he goes in as a second-year starter, or, he was a part-time starter as a freshman. He became a full-time starter in year 2, and there was this massive leap. And then in that same 2022 season, as everybody's watching this with Kool-Aid McKinstry, you've got Terrion Arnold, who's dealing, he came in the same class as Kool-Aid, but because he was transitioning from high school safety to college corner, he was a year behind him as far as being able to get on the field. So he started to become like a part-time starter, saw a very similar number of snaps, struggled and probably a lot worse than Kool-Aid, but it was still, there was a lot of similarities between the two. And then going into the 2023 season, everybody's skeptical of the leap from Terrion Arnold in the same way that they were with Kool-Aid McKinstry, despite the fact they had just seen Kool-Aid McKinstry make that massive leap.
Right.
And then lo and behold, Terrion Arnold ends up not only having a better season than Kool-Aid, he gets drafted higher than him. He was a first-round draft pick. And, so with Zabien Brown, I started thinking about it, and I wanted to compare the statistics for Brown, Arnold, and McKinstry. At some point, we're going to get better graphics, Mick. This is me doing this.
No, I was laughing at that's pretty funny. Like, I like where your brain's going, not the graphic. Who cares about the graphic?
Well, I was already planning to say that because I'm like going in, I'm like, this doesn't look great, but it gets the point across. But when you look at Brown's stats compared to Terrion Arnold, and the bold means that's the highest amongst the three. Brown ended up playing more snaps. He had the same number of starts as McKinstry and Arnold combined. Did give up more touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions and including 2 game-sealing interceptions, which I don't think we talk about that enough. Like, you got to have it. It's a close game against Georgia. It's a close game against South Carolina. You need a big play, and Zabien Brown was the one to step up and do that on multiple occasions. But it's, I thought he had a lot of the same ups and downs, but the reason I'm so high on this guy, he's a former 5-star talent, just like Kool-Aid McKinstry. On 3 had Terrion Arnold as a 5-star coming out. So, top 50 prospect, as far as the industry rankings and stuff, but some services had him as a 5-star. I just think that Zabien Brown is going to have a Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry type of year 1 to year 2 leap as the starter. And I think that playing opposite Damani Jackson is going to give Alabama probably the best cornerback tandem in the entire country.
Wow. And that's already a group that we feel really good about. And when you're comparing him to, remember now, Terrion Arnold didn't have a great, freshman year, right? And then he came on strong. Now, Kool-Aid McKinstry was someone that no one wanted to throw on.
Yes, his second year as a starter, for sure. He became kind of that lockdown guy where it's like, okay, you really didn't see a whole lot. Zabien Brown already has more career interceptions than Kool-Aid McKinstry did in 3 seasons.
That's crazy.
In 2 different years. A lot of that was teams avoiding throwing his way. It's a reason why in 2022, or I guess 2020, 2022, it's a big reason why you saw Terrion Arnold getting picked on, is they really didn't want to throw at Kool-Aid McKinstry. Now, we saw kind of a revolving door there. You saw some other guys, Eli Ricks and some others, kind of getting that competition a little bit. But, we've seen this from guys where, in Nick Saban's defense, your corners are left on islands a lot more so than Kane Wommack's. So that is something to at least consider, even though Alabama played a lot more cover 1 than I was expecting. A lot of single high stuff. So, I guess in some ways the corners are still left on islands in certain instances, and it can be kind of exposable. But I think not only does Alabama have 2 really good corners, but you also got to feel good about, the safeties and kind of the range that Bray Hubbard and Keon Sapp can play with, on the back end. And, you got Huskies that we feel like they can trust. And when you start looking at a secondary, you start saying, okay, where are the exploitable pieces? All it takes is one guy who you can absolutely moss, and you're going to have a lot of success offensively. You just target that guy a ton. We've seen it, and work out in Alabama's favor when they're on offense. We've seen other teams do it. Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee 2022. I look at Alabama's secondary right now, and I don't see any glaring holes that any opposing offense is really going to be able to take advantage of.
Well, that's good news. I like to hear that. And I feel like the secondary has so much depth too, and maybe that's for a video down the line. We should do that later this week. Just kind of get into what the secondary has, cornerback, safety, how you feel about the guys that you think are going to start, and then the backups, because Calhoun looks like he's going to be a really good player there for Alabama. Obviously Sabb's going to come back. Everybody likes Hubbard. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but you're talking about a weakness coming. Remember last year, the whole secondary transferred pretty much. And Alabama had to build it back with Coach DeBoer and his staff. And then, this year it feels like it's going to be a real strength. And we'll get into that too, not only on a video here on Cover Crimson, but also on covercrimson.com. So that's another place where you guys can find some more information. We want you to sign up, $25 off the annual when you do that right now. One of the things I think we're all really kind of pumped up about on the offensive side of the ball is the running backs. And since I've been at Alabama, I don't remember a year where Bama didn't have decent backs. As far as I can remember, long before Saban, Alabama's always been known for great running backs. But then Saban came in, and it was like, well, that was, kind of on steroids, and we just kept getting better and better. This year's going to be interesting. Jam Miller kind of proved in the late games, including the Iron Bowl, that, hey, this was going to be kind of his job. And so much so that Justice Haynes transferred out. Bama went into the transfer portal to bring in a running back. You got all those guys that came in, 4- and 5-star running backs, some 3-star guys that are really good too. So it's a very, very talented running back room. But Clint, the question everybody wants to know is, does Alabama have 1,000-yard back in that group?
Yeah, when's the last time Alabama had 1,000-yard back? It's been a little while.
Can I guess before you tell us? I'm going to say, just for the trivia aspect of today's show, I'm going to say Najee's probably the last 1,000-yard back. Brian Robinson probably got close, but I don't think he got 1,000.
He actually had over 1,300 in
Really?
2021. Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean,
because he was a one-horse guy there for a minute.
He was definitely like he had 271 carries. The next highest was almost 200 less, 200 fewer, which was Trey Sanders with 72. And that's the year that, running back started getting hurt, including Ryan Robinson. But he was definitely like a workhorse guy, 14 touchdowns, averaged just under 5 yards a carry. So it wasn't as efficient as we saw some of the other running backs, like look, the Najee Harris the year before, 5.84. Najee Harris the year before that when he went for 1,200, 5.86, 5.84 for Damian Harris in 2018. So like the efficiency for Brian Robinson really kind of plummeted due to, him being such a workhorse, the fact that he was playing through some injuries. But at the same time, he was 1,000-yard rusher. And I want to point out to people, because one of the big contributing factors compared to some of these other guys that Alabama didn't come a lot closer to having 1,000-yard back in 2024. I think so. Let's see. Yeah, Jalen Milroe was the leading rusher with 726 yards, but Jam Miller had 668. The fact that they only played in 13 games, like you saw a lot of these other guys. How many games did Alabama play in 2021? 15, right?
Yeah.
15 games. You start adding a couple of more games in, even if you leave the averages the same, which Jim Miller averaged 51.38 rushing yards per game. That would have been, if you throw a couple of more games on there, you're talking about an extra 102 yards. So we'd be sitting up there closer to 800 yards rushing, and that's all else remaining the same. But there were a lot of contributing factors to Alabama not being very successful with its traditional run game. I think the fact that they were never really given the opportunity to get into any sort of kind of rhythm. I think the fact that, the offensive line really had a tough time as far as generating any sort of consistent push. I think the run game kind of being funneled through Jalen Milroe's legs, like you give him a lot of option plays, he's going to call his own number quite a bit. Some of it, a lot of it was the correct call, the correct read. Some of it wasn't. So I think it was a combination of factors. But now that you're going to probably see a little bit more of the Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb style of offense, and the fact that the run game is going to be funneled through the running backs, I would fully expect you're still going to a lot of pass attempts. That's going to certainly go up. You've got close to 250 vacated carries between Jalen Milroe and Justice Haynes, but you've got Richard Young, you've got Dre Washington, you've potentially got a guy like A.K. Deere, Daniel Hill, or Kevin Riley, who are all going to be vying for touches, and that kind of worries me as far as the more that's spread out, the less likely you're going to have a 1,000-yard rusher. Mm-hmm. But I think the efficiency of this offense, the diversity of the run game that we saw from Washington under Kalen DeBoer, I think you're going to see a lot more of that, more efficiency, higher yards per carry. Jam Miller, he only averaged 4.6 yards a carry, which is not great. I mean, you throw a whole nother yard, which is, about 1.2 yards on top of what he was already averaging based off of how many carries he had, and he would have added another 150, 160 yards to his season total, would have been a lot closer. So I would fully expect him to at least get as many carries as he did last year at the bare minimum, which was 145. I think he's going to be a lot more efficient with his touches. And so that would probably put Shem easily up in that 850, 900 range. You add a couple of games on top of that, it is extremely possible that Jam Miller or one of these other Alabama running backs ends up going for 1,000+ yards.
I guess the question I would have, though, is will they get enough chances? Obviously, Ryan Grubb left Seattle, and it looks like it really isn't his fault as much as just the change of philosophy there. Have you seen, like, Geno Smith got traded? They traded DK Metcalf. They got rid of Lockett. I mean, like, they're unloading everyone. He was probably like, man, I'm getting out of here. You can tell just by the moves that they're making that they're resetting everything, and maybe that's why he got out of town. But 10-7 to me is a good year, But talking about Grubb, loves to throw the football, and and when they were in Seattle, they threw the ball a lot, and I wonder if that's going to affect the ability to have a 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, are they going to get enough touches to do it?
Well, I keep coming back to, like, you are going to have an increase in pass attempts. There's no doubt about that. Jalen Milroe, he only averaged 24.5 pass attempts per game. Like that was ranked outside of the top 100. And so when you look at what Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb are going to want to do, that's going to easily, I mean, you're going to probably at the bare minimum be looking at 30 plus. So that's a pretty steep increase, but you're also taking, about 168 carries off of, the quarterback and giving at least a percentage of those to the running backs. And Justice Haynes, I mean, he had 79 carries. Richard Young only had 27. So a portion of that's probably going to go to your RB2, maybe, some your RB3. But I think at the bare minimum, Jam Miller is going to get the workload, 145 carries, which was only 11.1 or 11.2 per game last year. I think at bare minimum, he gets that. I mean, he might not be a 15 carry a game type of guy, but if he gets that type of workload, which is still not a significant workload, it could be higher than that, but I think bare minimum, and he averages, 5.8 yards per attempt rather than 4.6, like that automatically is going to really stack on the yards. And once again, if I say 145, 11.2 per game, if they play 15 games or 16 games rather than 13, and he continues to get that kind of workload, that will also close that gap. So I'm not going to guarantee or say I feel really good about them getting a 1,000-yard rusher, because there's a lot of different ways that this could work out. But I do think that it's extremely possible that a guy like Jam Miller, who I think is a much better player than his stats would indicate last year. But one of the things that I did want to bring up was kind of his rushing numbers from the last 2 years, because what I have highlighted in yellow, this is the right end, off the right end, which is outside of the tight end. But almost half of his rushing yards in 2023 came off the right end, and then 253 out of 676 which is, I want to say, is well north of 35 to 40%. It was the same thing. So when you talk about his overall production, he's had 877 rushing yards. 447 of those have come off of either the left or right end, and 350, so about 40%, have come off of just the right side outside the tight end. That is an absurd percentage of your production coming from one spot when you've got, I mean, as you can see, all those listed spots.
Well, how do they improve that? I mean, because it kind of feels like, or is that because he was running behind Booker?
I think it was he's a better outside zone runner. You saw him
running behind Booker, right? I'm on the wrong side of the line.
Well, when they're pulling Booker from the backside, for sure. Yeah, he's getting out there, and making some blocks. Alabama's tight ends did a really good job of blocking. The perimeter blocking was good. So as I said, the way that things were kind of set up, the perimeter runs were a huge part of Alabama's offensive identity. It's why Kendrick Law and some of those guys, their blocking ability out on the perimeter was so crucial. But even now that you won't have Jalen Milroe, I think that will create a little bit more balance as far as how they want to attack defenses with their run game. I think they're going to have to rely a little bit more on, being a little bit more diverse. But it's crazy because Jam Miller, for whatever reason, I mean, when you're talking about 40% of your rushing yards the last 2 years coming in one direction outside, that's a huge chunk. I would expect that to balance out quite a bit, but he's a guy who's, when you get him in space, he's going to be able to make things happen. He's got great vision. He showed great patience. There's a great example of that in a zone run against Wisconsin, where he went for the touchdown, where he let kind of everything flow, cut off the backside, and he was gone. It's like, this guy, he is a better running back than people realize. I thought he was one of the better running backs going into last season. It ended up not coming to fruition, but if Alabama can get some of these things corrected, I would fully expect Jam Miller to have a lot more success offensively.
Yeah, I hope that's the case too. Hey guys, before we talk about Alabama's defense and some of those guys like LT Overton, let me tell you that 50% off right now using our promo code Crimson. That's our promo code right up there for Cover Crimson. Crimson, when you go to mybookie.ag, deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using our promo code Crimson, mybookie.ag. Well, I kind of gave you who I think is going to lead Alabama's defense in sacks. LT Overton felt like he was back there a lot last year. Tim Keenan's going to be one of those guys that could be in the mix for that. I got a feeling that you're going to pick somebody different, though.
You know what? I'm not.
Really?
I'm going to go with LT Overton too. Now, here's the thing. I want there to be a caveat to that. When you've looked at Kane Wommack's defenses traditionally, the fact that the only true 3-down edge is the bandit. Like a lot of people, like when you think of the Wolf, it's like, okay, that you want your best, most athletic pass rusher to be playing that Wolf position. That is accurate to an extent, but the fact that that position plays off the ball so much, and when you do have a guy dropping into the boundary, it's going to be that guy to the weak side. So that's going to be that Wolf a lot more than it's going to be your strong side end, which is your bandit.
Right.
And so, like, there's just not as many rush opportunities for the Wolf. And the fact that, there's going to be a deep rotation at bandit. I would expect at least 3, potentially 4, depending on what happens with Keon Keeley. If that limits LT Overton's snaps, then it is possible that he doesn't. But I could also see them wanting to get more of those bandits on the field alongside an LT Overton. Right. So I'm hoping that if he can finish better, the rush opportunities are there. The fact that traditionally when you look at Kane Wommack's defense, the bandit usually is leading the team. Last year was an off-ball linebacker and Jahad Campbell. They used him in a variety of ways. I wouldn't expect that to continue. It's going to be either the Wolf or the bandit, in my opinion. I guess it's possible, like if James Smith goes off, it could be an interior defensive lineman. And I say goes off is like 7 or 8 sacks. I'm not expecting double-digit sacks from any of the interior guys. Maybe as somebody that's super efficient, an Edric Hill. I really probably don't foresee that. But like Quandarius Robinson was certainly in that conversation last year as a situational player. Could it potentially be like a Yanze Pierre if he's used in a similar fashion? I don't know. I see Quay Russaw. I see potentially Noah Carter. You got Jamarian Latham. You got potentially Justin Hill. Like there's a lot of bodies to rotate at that Wolf position. And so I think more than likely it's going to end up being a bandit, such as LT Overton.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. There's always those surprise guys too, and you hope that you get those. Nick Saban always seemed to find those guys. I can remember being in, like these camps and starting to hear about, hey, guess what? There's this guy. He's doing really well. I want to say it was more the fall camp, but they're talking about Will Anderson. That's this guy from Georgia, man. He's really good. Everybody's saying Dallas Turner's going to be the guy, and I wonder who that is. I thought maybe Jefferson. Who knows, man? I mean, you just go out there and do it, and hopefully you find a couple of those guys that pop up.
Well, it's like I said. I think Quay Russaw is a better pass rusher than last year would indicate. Losing 10 pounds, being healthy, hopefully for the entirety of the season, I think that's really going to help him. I mean, he only had 1 sack, and I thought he was more disruptive and more. Mm-hmm. I thought he was better than that. So I would expect his to continue. If there was somebody right now, we've talked a lot about Yanze Pierre. The one that we probably don't talk about enough because I'm such a big fan of Justin Hill, and Jamarian Latham's going to be a part of that conversation. Russaw, Yanze Pierre is a guy I've mentioned, but Noah Carter, former top 100 recruit, thought he needed to get bigger and stronger, which he spent the offseason doing just that this past offseason, and he continues to get bigger and stronger. He's added pretty substantial weight, and he looks like a guy who could maybe get involved. So I definitely want to give him, the coaching staff really liked him. Kalen DeBoer in particular, he was kind of heading to Washington before DeBoer made that switch, and he ended up following DeBoer to Alabama. It was kind of a late get for them, and it was a massive get. There could be some opportunities there. It's hard to kind of predict because we're talking about 4 guys at Bandit being potentially a part of that rotation. We're talking about 3, 4 at least at Wolf. If there was a guy I had to predict just because I'm so high on him, and you're talking about like a guy who kind of comes out of nowhere relative to where everybody thought he would be, it would probably be Justin Hill. But I think the fact that he's so comfortable playing off-ball linebacker and playing like the entirety of that Wolf position, that if he's out there, they're going to be very flexible with him. So, I mean, if he's not getting as many rush opportunities, he might not have a chance for that.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, guys, let's talk a little bit about Cover Crimson. I want to share this with you. These are some of the groundbreaking posts that I'm a part of on Cover Crimson. This is from if I can get this. Oh man, I don't know why it's not popping up there. Yeah, this is me from the Busy Bee this weekend at the Floribama. So it's me spelling. We do the tailgate show from there. But
they had you come up on stage in front of everybody, and as you were getting more intoxicated and spell words.
I'm a terrible speller anyway.
what word did they give you?
Intoxicated was one.
Okay.
Berry was one.
Wait, what was one?
Berry, just berry, like berry something. That was the first. That was like the first word. I can't remember what the other ones were. I missed half of them, but I was just.
Oh, so it wasn't a situation where you were out if you didn't get one right.
No. You make it to the end. So
okay,
but it was pretty fun. But anyway, I put on there. I just want to know everybody's favorite Floribama moment. I mean, that's not my favorite one. Last year, Nate Oates. I interviewed Nate Oates from the mullet toss, and I asked him if this was the biggest sporting event he had been a part of that year. But I was there.
Did he participate in the mullet toss?
No, but he was he was with us back there. Coker threw, Ryan Anderson threw. But I've had a lot of great times. But that's the kind of stuff I get into on the message board, along with sports too. And then Clint's breaking down everything on there. Clint, sorry to steal your thunder with that just fabulous picture.
I would have loved to have seen or been a part of that. Was it as nerve-wracking as I feel like it would be? I feel like there are words that I would easily be able to spell, but given the circumstances surrounding it, it's like someone asked for your favorite movie and you're like, I can't think of a single movie.
I'm a bad speller. I had very low expectations going in. I just was there for comic relief, and I think I did a good job of that. But there's this lady that I saw. I wasn't there last year, but I was the year before, and this same lady was there. Very, very attractive, like 80-year-old, maybe 85, but she loves it. And she wanted to win so bad. And last time she came in second. This time she spelled every single word right. But in the last category, she decided she wasn't going to bet all of her money. And some little girl with pigtails won and bow in her hair.
Wait a minute. So it was okay. So this is kind of like
again.
So it's like a trivia thing where they let you kind of gamble at the end, your points or your money.
Oh, yeah. Well, like Jeopardy, I guess. Like final.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
But Steve and all them do such a great job over there. Jen, our friend Jen, John McKinnis, big Bama. I went to Bama with John. He's one of the owners. But I love the place. And yeah, plan on coming to the mullet toss. I think I'm expecting the coaches to be back again, from what I understand. So and some of the players. So
when is the mullet toss?
It's the third weekend in April.
Okay. Wait. Let me check times here.
It's like April, whatever the third weekend anyway. Friday,
Saturday,
Sunday.
So
15, 16, 17, 18, like not 8, 19-ish, somewhere in there. April.
Okay, 19th. So it'll be the weekend after A-Day.
Oh, yeah. We got it. You do A-Day first, and then you do the mullet toss second. I mean, like you wouldn't want to take all the thunder from the A-Day game. Or now scrimmage with the mullet toss. To me is a much bigger event, especially because, they're not nerfing the mullet toss. You're still all in. They're not gonna, say, hey, another mullet toss might come and take your best mullet throwers. So we're not gonna let everybody throw the mullets, like in the 8A game now. You're like, what is this? It's not even a game. It's just a scrimmage or something. I don't know. We'll be on here afterwards to tell you guys exactly what it was if you don't go.
Yeah, and I also want to say we're planning a pretty big post A-Day show. So for anybody that was not able to go to A-Day, which I know there's a bunch of you guys, know that we're going to be going live pretty soon after it. I'm going to be taking a ton of notes, talking about everything that I saw. Mick, same thing. And we're going to hash everything out. We're going to discuss the performances and and all of that stuff. And so hopefully we can give, the people who aren't able to be there a little bit of insight that maybe they aren't getting as a result of it not being on TV.
Right. And then Cover Crimson, 25% off, or excuse me, $25 off, which really works to about 25%. Actually more than that right now, off the annual subscription. But that's where you get to hang out with us. And you can tell us your favorite A-Day moment, your favorite football game. Ask Clint questions about the roster. I get to do that, but you guys want to. You can do it easily. And we appreciate all of you for being a part of what we're doing over there. And we got a lot of cool stuff coming and adding things every day.
Yeah, we're having fun. Like I said, yesterday I released, I think, number 7 and number 13 in my player rankings. Or maybe it was number 8 to number 13. Top 6 or 7 guys are going to be coming later today. Great information, nice little long paragraph, kind of the stuff that I talked about comparing Zabien Brown to Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold and the rushing direction, the success that Jam Miller's had and all that stuff. I do a ton of that as far as every single player dive in. So if you haven't already, go check that out. And we look forward to seeing you guys over there.
All right. We'll do it again tomorrow. We appreciate it. Waiting on Coker for Elephant in the Room. We got a lot of other great things here on the channel. So like, subscribe, thumbs up, comment as always. And again, comment section. Some of you guys, you with your comments, you're blowing us away with your knowledge and your sense of humor and all that stuff. So bring that over to covercrimson.com. Be a part of that there. So for Clint Lamb, I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll.